Right, everyone, welcome to today's book review. Once again, we are seeing the book Start With Why by Sinex. So it's actually going to be very straight to the point. Today's I'm going to review just two chapters under the third part, that is part 3. And I'm going to show you a diagram Simon Sinex explained in this particular chapter. It's actually very interesting to see. So, in this chapter, it talks about the law of diffusion. We are going to see it together. Before we see it, a reminder about what we always do. Before we review a particular author, before we review the book written by any author, we have to understand who that author is. We have to know who that author is. And in today's case, we are seeing Simon Sinex. Who is this guy? Simon Sinex is a British American author, motivational speaker, and organizational leadership expert, right? So these are his core philosophy: the golden circle that we've seen before, the infinite game, psychology, safety, of course, and some of those concepts are in other books. In this book, the major concept is golden the golden cycle. He's an American, so we've established that fact. Now let us go straight to the book so that I can explain the chapter we are going to see today. Now straight to the book. The under part 3, there are two chapters there. The first is the emergence of trust. Then the next is how a tipping point tips. In the emergence of trust, he basically talks about how leadership is formed through trusting, and we saw that in the previous episode. The 7th chapter is very interesting. I'm going to expand on that briefly. How a tipping point tips is basically, this chapter basically talks about the law of diffusion. And by law of diffusion here, it meant that you cannot satisfy everybody. If your goal in doing anything or marketing is for everyone, then you are not going to succeed in it. Now, in explaining this, I'm going to show a diagram that he actually used to explain this in his book. That diagram is, I think it's in, that diagram is in a Medium article. I'm just going to go extract it now. And basically what the diagram just talks about is this law of division of innovation. If you understand this, if you are able to also apply this in whatever thing you do, and also acknowledge the fact that there are, I think this is actually even similar to one of the books we've reviewed so far about people being different. That's the Mafia Manager. People will not always be the same. So I'm just going to use this diagram to explain. That's just going to be all we are going to see today. Now, this diagram we see here is the diagram of the law of diffusion of innovation. Law of diffusion. So Simon Sinex in this chapter explained using several scenarios and stories about this chart, right? This curve. You should know that in every niche, in everything in this world, there would always be the 2.5%, which will be the innovators. Now, innovators are those who create things. Innovators are those who bring up ideas to life that at first some persons might see as something that doesn't make sense. So, and the innovators are usually 2.5%. Of course, that means they're usually lesser. They are usually few in the society. This applies to several niches in fashion. You can be in one of these 2.5%. Yours might not be tech, yours might be fashion, yours might be food, yours might be governance. So there's that 2.5%. Then there's the early adopters, right? The early adopters are those that adopt early, 13.5%. Now, this is where the thing gets tricky. According to this law, anytime you want to launch anything at all, anytime you want to launch a product, you want to bring up an idea, you want to make sales, Your focus should be on the early adopters. Never at any point in time go to the early majority or to the late majority. So the much of the society, about 68% of the society, is the early majority and the late majority. So there is the trick. If any product at all you are selling or trying to launch is to the early majority and the late majority, then you are going to not it's not going to succeed, right? Because you have left these early adopters. And what is the thing that attracts these early adopters according to Simon Sinex? That is when you know the why. And now I'm going to use an example that he gave about a particular TV brand. I think Tito or something. And so this 16% is the laggards, where they might even never going to use it. You can see a man looking like the Stone Age guys, right? So now he gave an example about a brand that when they started, before they launched, they already got a lot of venture capitalists funded their project, a lot of people happy to expect them succeed, right? But they failed to realize that if everyone is expecting you to launch, then you might fail. By the time they launched, they definitely fail because they wanted to please everybody. They did not focus on the early adopters that will actually adopt because of the why. So I think that's similar to Bitcoin today or cryptocurrency, right? Uh, I know there was a time that there was a very popular cryptocurrency that a lot of persons were trying to mine. So it failed at the end of the day. So that is the principle of the law of diffusion, basically explained by Simon Sinex in this chapter. The chapter was hovering around this, gave several examples. He even gave example of Martin Luther giving his speech in 1963 on the dream he had. I have a dream. It was focused on early adopters of his psychology, early adopters of his why, which were the blacks. Not everyone then. It wasn't for everyone. It wasn't for the early majority or the late majority or the laggards. That's the racist or people that would never want to believe in that. So he just focused on some persons that are definitely going to adopt it, right? So in order to apply this in anything you do basically right now, according to how Simon Sinex has put this, you are expected to acknowledge the fact that there would always be the early adopters of your ideas. That is, those are the people you should reach out to. Those are the people you should work towards pleasing. Those are the people you should work towards ensuring they patronize you. Pardon my use of word. They adopt your service, your product, or anything you are doing as a leader. And in order to get those guys, there has to be a why. There has to be a why. So the why will be something that is going to attract the focus, your focus audience, right? And most time people will always buy because of the why. Going back to what I explained last time about the golden rule and about what this book is filled of the golden cycle, rather the golden cycle psychology shows that before you succeed in anything there should be a foundation which should be on the why, and when there is a why there should be a how. You need to know the how. That's what we are going to see in the next episode, and you need to know the what. This basic cycle is going to make you succeed in anything you do. Thank you so much for joining in today on today's episode. We're going to see in the next episode. We are still reviewing the book Start With Why by Simon Sinex. See you in the next episode. Thank you so much.